Let's get started with another one. Before I do my intro, if you're on audio platform, audio only platform, there's nothing wrong with my audio or your audio. I record this podcast out in the street while walking or doing body weight exercises or whatever. Please be patient, keep that in mind, but that's it's a part of the production of this podcast. With that said, welcome everybody to Speaking Smashinese, the world's first psychology-centric or psychology-focused podcast that is recorded in the streets while walking and doing calisthenics exercises. I'm recording in real time, which means I'm out here walking right now as I'm recording. Yes. For those who are new, Smashinese is a term I came up with in college where I studied psychology and philosophy. It just means the language of making love, the language of making out, or the language of intimacy. I invite all of you to walk, bike, or march in place with me as you're listening. If you're sitting, that's fine too. You know what? You can just slide your feet on the floor. If you're on carpet, get a piece of paper or something. I usually don't even say that, but somebody emailed me and let me know that they support the podcast and they just slide their feet on the floor because that's all their mobility allows them to do right now. Just do something. In today's show, we explore how emotionally immature people distort reality. Okay. Today, we're stepping into something that is difficult in some ways and deeply misunderstood in others. And we will not only be talking about toxic relationships, we will be also, well, I love doing this live. We will also be going a bit deeper than just manipulation, because a lot of people view toxic relationships as manipulative relationships, okay? And in their own way, both of these things are confusing, right? Whichever way you look at it, they can be confusing. And someone asked me if I could do a show on this topic, so we'll do our best to try to get through it. All right? Today, I'm gonna make it worse. What you talking about, coach? Because I want to talk about something even more confusing, and that is why intelligent, loving, capable people sometimes stay emotionally attached to relationships that are clearly hurting them. And for yourself, if you've ever watched someone stay with a person who is a compulsive liar or constantly tries to rewrite reality. I think we had something in politics not too long ago. Yeah, you have facts, and these aren't lies. These are alternative facts. There's no such thing as alternative facts, guys. Okay? You ever seen someone or been with someone yourself who just tries to make their way in a relationship by creating confusion. Or you can't depend on them. They keep breaking your trust over and over and over and over again. You may have asked yourself, what the what? Why don't they just leave already? Because it seems simple to you and I, right? But before we judge the person who puts up with a toxic partner, we have to understand something important. Staying is not always about weakness, guys. Even more importantly, staying is not always about low intelligence. You're not just dumb. I've heard people, oh, she's staying with him, he's staying with her. She's dumb. She's dumb. It's not that cut and dry. In other words, it is not fair to label everyone who stays in a toxic relationship as dumb or stupid, because this is not necessarily the case. And I say necessarily because I'm sure in some situations the person has a way out or had a way out and just decided to stay for goofy reasons. All right? And that still doesn't mean everybody is dumb, because they're doing the same thing that a potentially dumb person did, right? And this is not simply bad decision making, right? It's not simply bad decision making. Sometimes the nervous system becomes conditioned to chaos and intermittent reward in ways that actually resemble addiction. Yeah, that addiction. You know, the illegal substances type of addiction. Or alcohol addiction. And until we understand this whole phenomenon, we misunderstand both trauma and the people trapped inside of that trauma. And this is why it's good to talk about it. Let me ask you guys this. Have you ever known someone in a relationship that looked painful from the outside? And when I say looked painful, I'm talking about the relationship, right? The relationship to you was like, ugh, how are they doing that? Okay? To the rest of the world, it looks like insanity. A normal, reasonable person would be like, there is no way that I would be getting down like that. I would be out of that relationship in a second. But the person you knew who was in the relationship told you it was impossible to leave the relationship. This leads us to our next topic or module or focus, if you will, which is emotional immaturity, right? It seems self-explanatory, but you have to get into these concepts. So, first, let's make sure everyone listening understands emotional immaturity. Emotional immaturity describes behavioral and emotional functioning, not moral worth. Okay? Simplified, that just means everything in a relationship is not as simple as it seems, especially these relationships where people stay in a toxic situation. It is not that cut and dry. An emotionally immature person may, and we're going to get into some characteristics now. They may avoid accountability. Well, we kind of figured that, coach. Okay, just let me get through it. They may struggle with emotional regulation. Do you know what I mean by emotional regulation? Somebody that's quick to be in their emotions, okay? Be that anger, flying off the handle, quick temper, crying, sadness, accusing somebody of something, wanting to be physically violent. All of these things fall under that, okay? The emotionally immature person may want to rewrite or reimagine events in a different way. You know, it didn't happen like that. But this person is delusional. They're going to do it. They're going to say what they're saying and do things, pretend that things are different or were different. The series of events happened differently than what they did. Emotionally immature people often shut down during conflict. This is another reason they can't be trusted, right? They definitely blame others excessively and never take accountability, right? And you may have never been in a relationship like that, but you definitely know exactly what I'm talking about, because you know people that are like this. These type of people also struggle with empathy or perspective taking, right? And that just means they have difficulty seeing things the way other people see things. And there can be multiple sides to everything, but some things are objectively wrong. And emotionally immature people, they don't quite agree with that because they don't have that ability to take your perspective and see, oh, okay, I'm sorry, I need to stop that. They don't have that ability, all right? Emotionally immature people tend to rely on impulsive or black and white thinking. For them, it's either this or it's that. Okay? The emotionally immature person can become toxic in behavior. I emphasize can because, again, it isn't automatic, and we want to be careful not to overgeneralize. Some emotionally immature people are reactive, confusing. They're definitely inconsistent, some of them, without being intentionally harmful. Now, let's digest this, okay? Reactive confusing, and inconsistent without being intentionally harmful. And the key word there is intentionally. So they can be these things, but we can't just point the finger. A lot of things in life, especially in relationships and people with these emotional issues, they're more nuanced than just saying, well, he did that, so he must have meant to do it, right? A lot of things, most things in life are way more nuanced than that. But what are the relationship dynamics of these types of relationships? Is toxic even a bad thing all the time? And it sounds like a silly question, but is it really? Is toxic necessarily harmful? And this question brings us to impact. 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 A relationship becomes harmful when repeated patterns, there's that word patterns again, produce fear, produce confusion. What else? Coach. Produce instability, manipulation, emotional erosion. The slow, steady wearing away of my sanity dealing with this person. And I have to include chronic insecurity, right? Because that transcends just being insecure. People are destroyed on the inside. This can involve emotional immaturity, yes, but it can also involve personality issues, poor communication. You're not toxic because you don't know how to communicate, but the perception on the outside looking in is that that's a toxic person. But not everyone has these skill sets. And this is why it's important to work on closeness and communication, to build something. You don't jump into relationships, okay? You meet someone that you're attracted to, and then you go to work. You get your tools, you put your hard hat on, and you start going to work. Because relationships are more about building and maintenance than anything else. More about building and maintenance, maintaining what you've built. And when you work in maintenance, right, at a building, an office building, a school, some corporation, it's an ongoing thing. Whatever goes wrong today must be dealt with today. Once it's fixed, you want to try to do it right so it doesn't rear its ugly head for a long, long time. But nothing lasts forever, so it may rear its ugly head. There's no difference in relationships, right? Some people have unresolved trauma. And yes, you got the power tripping people, the controlling behavior people, or maybe combinations of anything on this list. So I guess you could say, well, they're partially guilty and they're partially not guilty, whatever that means, right? So, immaturity may contribute to toxicity, but it is not identical to it. Just because someone is young in their brain, we're not talking about age, because you can be 80 and be young in the brain. Just because they're immature and they don't know how to handle things, and they don't know how to be in a relationship, and they don't know how to talk to you, and they don't know how to respond to you, and they don't know how to do for you, and they don't know how to receive, accept the things that you've done for them. This is not toxicity. The two concepts are not identical. Well, okay, coach. Can you just tell us about the partner who feels unable to leave? Because that's what we want to know about. Yep. Let's dig a little bit deeper psychologically, because this is something different entirely. Up to this point, we focused on the villain, okay, in quotations, right? The bad guy or the bad girl, okay? In storytelling, the antagonist. Now, we switch our thoughts to the victim or the protagonist, all right? Because with this person, this is something different entirely. That person who refuses to leave a toxic relationship is not necessarily immature. They are not necessarily weak. They may be experiencing trauma bonding. We'll get more into that in a minute. Attachment, activation, nervous system conditioning. Yes, you can be trained. Fear of loss, because they genuinely adore the person that they met and that they're with. Financial dependence. They just can't stand on their own 2 feet by themselves at the moment. You have identity collapse. Some people identify, they feel relevant in society because of societal labels. You leave a toxic marriage, you're now a single woman. You have kids, you're now a single woman, a divorced woman, and a single mom. And depending on your age, some people will judge you. But that's not the important part. The important part is a lot of people feel like they should be judged. So they internalize their situation. So they feel like they're just nobody. Their dignity is just washed down the drain. Okay? And we also want to look at something that we call intermittent reinforcement dynamics. What the what? That's just rewards. Cleverly planned rewards. Think of it that way. So the partner who feels stuck in the toxic relationship is usually the person caught inside the attachment cycle. But they are not I did say this was confusing. They are not the emotionally immature one by default. Okay? Because they can be emotionally immature as well. And we'll see that. But they're not the one who's emotionally immature in the relationship by default. And I have to point that out so that we can get people to stop thinking that just because you stay in a toxic relationship, somehow you're dumb or you're stupid. Because you are not. So, for clarity, because I know, like I said, all of this can be confusing. Let me try to simplify it. Person A, or the toxic one in the relationship, may distort reality through immaturity, inconsistency, or emotional, instability. Person B, our protagonist, our quote, unquote victim, all right? And we'll call this person the victim to distinguish the two partners. Person B may become trapped through attachment, nervous system conditioning, real thing, guys, and even hope or intermittent reward. And this is important. Okay, I'm at a bench. If you're new to the show, we don't just walk and speak everything relationships and self-improvement on Speaking Smashinese. We also take occasional active breaks from our walking, and we do some body weight exercises. All right, I use this time when I'm recording for you guys to do push-ups. I like the whole idea of doing several hundred push-ups a day when I can, so that when I'm sick and can't get out of the bed or whatever, I'm not losing anything, right? You can do body weight squats. You can do box squats. You can do burpees if you're so inclined. I will not with my equipment on to record the show. You can do jumping jacks. You can punch the air, do some shadow boxing, whatever. But let's get our heart rate up. And this helps what we do on Speaking Smashinese to be a full body workout. Get some cardio and some strength training in there. All right. And calisthenics is a beautiful thing, guys. All right. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50. There are some people that are on audio-only platforms and they're asking, are you really doing these push-ups? Speaking Smashinese is also on YouTube, guys. I record everything POV. All right. So you see what I see when I'm walking. It makes for probably some of the worst content on YouTube because there is video. There's no AI. And there's no need for you to see my ugly face because that's not what I want you focused on in my podcast. It's just my choice. All right? I'm not what's important here. Getting fit, building ourselves as much as we can, and improving our ability to be a better partner in a relationship. And of course, becoming fluent in speaking Smashinese. I had to say that. That's my focus. All right. Also, if you're doing push-ups or whatever, you don't have to match my count, guys. I do not have good sense when it comes to exercise. So please do not ever judge your ability or your level by looking at someone else. I'm going to do a couple more at a different level. You modify your levels. You get lower. Going to be harder. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Okay? So, I put my 75 in. Also, guys, Speaking Smashinese has a website. Take a look on the platform that you're watching on. Find the website. I have a really great free welcome packet for you guys. I created something that I think some of you will find really cool. You can print it out at home and you can track your walking, because I have something special for you when you get to 4,000 minutes of walking. All right? It only counts, your steps count, your minutes count when you're listening to the podcast. Of course, I wouldn't know, but there's an honor system. I'm trying to build a community over here. So check it out. Start tracking. And I actually have something nice. And you want to know 4,000 minutes is about 66, 67 hours of walking, which is about 70 or so episodes of the podcast. And I think we're only up to about 30 right now. So I'm not even monetized yet. And you'll understand that once you check it out. I appreciate all of you. Okay, where were we? I explained the difference between person A and person B. All right? And why did I do that? I wish y'all could speak to me while I'm doing this, because I have to plug the podcast and count, so it distracts me sometimes. Oh, that was important because sometimes I distinguished the two so that I could move forward and say that sometimes both partners can be emotionally immature. Say it with me, class. Sometimes both partners can be emotionally immature, while both are simultaneously, that means at the same time, simultaneously trauma bonded. Now, in my title for this episode, I say how emotionally immature people distort reality. And I hope I'm not lying. I hope I don't change it later, but I think it's going to stay that. Let me go get my psychology hat to get into this part of today's discussion specifically. And for clarity, emotional immaturity should be understood. Again, I repeat things because I'm really trying to teach here. All right? We become more sophisticated. We become more informed. We become better people. Emotional immaturity should be understood as difficulty managing emotions, accepting accountability, and navigating conflict with psychological flexibility. All right? Did I say it like I'm reading it? I want it to stick. I want it to stick. And let me keep it 100 with you. Emotionally immature people are not always evil. They are not always malicious. They are not always intentionally abusive. Sometimes they simply lack the emotional tools for healthy relating. You like that? Relationships? Relating, for healthy relating. But the impact can still be devastating. And that's why us, on the outside, we say toxic. We see a toxic situation. And one of the most powerful tools of emotional immaturity is reality distortion. That's why I figured a way to get that into my title. And you know, when someone is trying to distort reality, you can tell. You can tell. Because they say things like, that never happened. Or, come on, you're too sensitive. Or, here we go again. You always make things dramatic. They might say, nah, it wasn't like that. You misunderstood me. Or, probably the most annoying of all, they tell you you're imagining problems. You're creating something that doesn't even exist. You're the crazy one. Uh-huh. Yes, you is. Yes, you is. It's not is, it's are. You created that too. We all know people like this. Now, pause on the things I just said for a quick second. Because over time, this reality distortion doesn't just create disagreement. It creates confusion. And maybe you've been there before. Have you ever left a conversation more confused than when the conversation started? It's a crazy feeling, right? And I know it happens in college, and I know it happens, in lectures, and I know it'll happen on this podcast because I'm introducing new concepts and vocabulary and terms, and some people are like they already have listened to some episodes 2 and 3 and 4 times. These are the people that are really interested in learning about this stuff to improve themselves so that they can have a happier life. But I'm not talking about that type of confusing conversation. I'm talking about regular life stuff, not academic or educational type stuff, right? Now, I'd like to go into, I said I would return to this idea of trauma bonding. I'd like to go into the biological grip of trauma bonding. And this is where we get even deeper into this confusing conversation. Because we think people in toxic relationships should just get up and go. Let me get my stuff, I'm out. We think it's that simple. Many people think trauma bonding means you love someone toxic. That's, let's say, what will we call this, Coach Sumo? Incomplete. That's incomplete. Because just by the definition alone, trauma bonding describes strong emotional attachment formed through cycles of distress, cycles of relief, cycles of inconsistency. There's one more. And emotional dependency. And a little earlier, I said something about intermittent rewards. This is also known as intermittent reinforcement, which is the first way I introduced it. And this matters psychologically because the brain pays extraordinary attention to unpredictable reward. Not constant reward, but unpredictable reward. Think about it. What keeps people glued to slot machines in casinos? And if you've ever gambled, you may have got angry enough, mad enough to want to kick the machine, beat it with a baseball bat. But then, boom, shakalaka. But then you win a little bit of change, a couple dollars. And that slot machine, you see hearts coming out of it. You see hearts coming out of the machine. That's your best friend again. This is a great example of intermittent reinforcement. Because you're thinking, maybe I'll win again. So when you start losing again, you keep thinking maybe you'll win again. So I have to be patient. I just got to be patient. I had a bad moment, but the machine came around. There's good here. There are rewards. So you love gambling. Then you hate gambling. I hate gambling. And the cycle just repeats itself because casinos are designed to make you look for the reward. But this will only work if they let you win a tiny little bit, just a little bit, from time to time. On occasion, they got to confuse your brain. They got to feed those hormones, those pleasure hormones. And relationships can fall into that same cycle. One day, your partner might be cold, dismissive, distant, and unavailable, right? The next day, they're affectionate. Aw, they're apologetic. You know, I didn't mean to snap at you yesterday. I actually love black burnt toast. It wasn't disgusting. I was disgusting for snapping at you. I apologize. They can be intensely loving on some days. And you feel like the most special person in the world. And what happens? The nervous system starts learning. Oh, okay. I'm in a relationship with a crazy, toxic fool, but relief follows the pain. Let me get used to this. I like the relief part. I like the good parts. But notice, I'm making fun of it a little bit to keep the podcast interesting, but I did not just say love. I used the word relief. You notice that? The brain said relief will come. Relief comes after this crazy toxic nonsense. But I never said LOVE. I never said love. I use relief intentionally because relief can feel like intimacy. Relief can feel like love. We're going to continue with that thought. I'm making another bench stop so we can get into these additional push-ups that I owe you guys. Please take a pause. Hydrate if you need to. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 9, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49. 5, 0. It feels good when you go to bed at night and you can say you did something. I don't care how many you do. This isn't about that. Do something. All right? I told one lady, she's like, I listen while I'm doing Amazon Flex. So I'm driving and sitting all day. I said, no, you're not. She said, yes, I am. I said, no, you're not. Because how do you deliver the packages? She's like, I think I know what you mean. I was like, you do. Up your step. Walk a little faster to these people's homes. Okay? If you have the mobility and the physical ability, you can lightly jog. Even if you're listening in the car, pause the podcast. All right? We can always push ourselves. You take a break, you stop somewhere to use the bathroom, find a bench, sit down and stand up 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 times. You've gone to work, you've handled survival and responsibilities, but you've also done the equivalent, if not more so, than going to the gym. So you take the time to think about it, or you find a good trainer or a good coach that really understands this crap, you don't need to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go to the gym, or go to the gym after work when you'd rather be home with your kids or your cat or your dog, Liquidicus. Okay, I'm getting silly now, but I'm back walking again. We were talking about how relief, intermittent rewards in toxic relationships can look like intimacy, can look like love, can look like this person truly cares about you, right? But many people who are suffering through toxic relationships are intelligent people. I said it to refute or debunk all the people that are calling these people stupid or dumb. Many of them, not all, okay? We're not playing those games. Many of them are intelligent people. Why does it seem like logic just stops working then? Coach Sumo, please. Why? And this is the part that people miss. People on the outside, like you and me, are like, just leave. Or some of us even tell our friend, why are you putting up with this crap? Just leave. Go. You want me to pick you up? You want to come stay here till you get yourself together? And we do this because to us, leaving is the logical thing to do. Wow, how easy is it to be logical when you're not them, when you're not in that situation? But guys, people, trauma doesn't operate through pure logic. Because when the nervous system is trapped in chronic stress and uncertainty and this relentless emotional instability, it enters fight, flight, freeze, fawn, fight, flight, freeze, fawn. And I know most of you have heard of fight or flight, but let me define it as the survival activation designed to protect you from danger. And survival mode changes your way of thinking. Hear me out now. During fight or flight, the brain becomes focused on relief and safety and what else? Regulation. Is not worried. The brain's not worried during fight or flight anyway about long-term reasoning, not being stupid, not looking stupid, not looking dumb. It's not worried about objectivity. You're in a subjective state. It's not worried about strategic decision making. And it certainly is not concerned about doing what is logical. You are essentially in survival mode. That's all the brain knows. So logic fails because survival is louder than analysis. And suddenly, the question becomes not, Is this relationship healthy? Is this thing that I'm going through healthy? Are my decisions healthy? It becomes, how do I stop hurting right now? And tragically, because they've been trained in a way, or let me say conditioned with intermittent rewards or reinforcements, same thing, the hurting person often turns toward who? Come on, class. The toxic person creating their distress in the first place. That is the trap. This is why people stay in toxic relationships and you think something's wrong with them because they do so. And the body keeps score. And this is where we move from psychological confusion to physical reality. Because stress, fear, and what's a good word, Sumo? Hypervigilance do not stay trapped in thought. They settle, but they got to settle somewhere. They have to live somewhere. They settle in the body. And if the body is holding survival energy, then healing cannot be purely intellectual. It's impossible. You cannot think your way out of a nervous system pattern. You have been trained. You have been conditioned. You cannot analyze or strategize yourself out of a nervous system pattern. You have to involve the body. And this takes us to something called somatic movement, SOMATIC, which I will have to cover in another episode so that this episode won't be 4 hours long. But we'll get to it. Because this whole toxic relationship thing, I get so many questions about it. It will likely end up being a series. But we're going to end there for today. I appreciate all of you. To my niece, Erica, if you're listening, I'm glad you like the show. I miss you, girl. Everyone else who's supporting me, y'all already know. I appreciate you more than you can imagine. I started this podcast just a little bit over a month ago, and I told myself no one's gonna care, but I don't care about no one caring because I'm going to record while I'm walking. So there'll be a benefit for me as well. And now so many of you have downloaded. Still no love on YouTube yet, but that's, again, these are the worst videos you could ever see. I'm walking in a circle at a park right now if you're on audio only. All right? There's nothing gorgeous to look at. You've been listening to Speaking Smashinese. I'm your host, Coach Sumo. I will walk with all of you in the next episode. Keep improving yourself. Never stop getting better physically, mentally, intellectually, and emotionally. You only get one life. Make the most of it. Ciao.